The first puppet in Lies of P is not actually the first puppet ever created. And more importantly, it isn't fully human either. It is something far more disturbing. The first successful attempt by Geppetto to recreate a human, his son Carlo, inside a puppet body. From that perspective, the Nameless Puppet stops being just a boss fight and becomes the closest thing to a resurrected human in the entire game, yet still fundamentally incomplete. When I first saw the achievement named the first puppet, I assumed it meant something more straightforward. Like, this was Geppetto's first creation, the prototype, the beginning of everything. But the more I thought about it, the less that made sense. Puppets existed long before Carlo died. There were made puppets, experimental ones, even emotional anomalies, long before the Nameless Puppet ever appeared. So, if the Nameless Puppet isn't the first puppet, then what is it actually the first of? It comes out that in Lies of P universe, it is the first time Geppetto tried to bring Carlo back. And that means the Nameless Puppet isn't just a machine, it's a failed resurrection. The phrase first puppet sounds definitive, like a historical label, like the origin point of all puppets. But that interpretation collapses almost immediately. There are too many contradictions. Puppets clearly existed when Carlo was still alive. His mother was already transformed into a puppet before his death. Emotional and experimental puppets existed long before the Lies of P game events. So the idea that Nameless Puppet is literally the first puppet ever built just doesn't hold up. Instead, something much more specific starts to emerge. The first here isn't about chronology, but about intention. The Nameless Puppet is the first puppet that wasn't created for labor, service or function. It was created for love, grief and obsession. It is the first puppet Geppetto built with one purpose – bring Carlo back. And that is a completely different category of creation. Every other puppet in Lies of P follows a clear logic. They are tools, they are programmed, they operate within the Grand Covenant. But the Nameless Puppet doesn't fit that structure. It exists outside of it. It's unstable, violent, almost wrong. And that's because he wasn't built to function. It was built to replace a human being. And that's a fundamentally impossible goal. You can feel that impossibility in the design itself. The Nameless Puppet isn't just aggressive, it feels incomplete, like something is missing or misaligned. Because it is. Geppetto didn't just create a puppet, he tried to force a human identity into something that couldn't fully hold it. And that even feels horrifying, to be honest. This idea raised another question for me. If the Nameless Puppet is a recreation of Carlo, then what exactly makes someone human in Lies of P? It is the body, the memories, the ego, or something else entirely? The Nameless Puppet forces that questions in a way nothing else in the game does, because it sits in a strange in-between state. It has a connection to Carlo, a body shaped by Geppetto's intention, likely fragments of identity or even memory, but it lacks something critical, something that P, the protagonist, slowly develops over time – humanity. And that is a key difference. Because while the Nameless Puppet is an attempt to recreate Carlo, P is something else entirely. P isn't forced into being human, he becomes human. That is why the Nameless Puppet feels hollow, while P feels alive. One is constructed identity, and the other one is emergent identity. There is a reason why the Nameless Puppet boss feels different. It's not just difficulty, it's not just mechanics. It is a feeling that something about it is off. I believe the real reason for this feeling is because the Nameless Puppet represents a version of Carlo that was never allowed to exist naturally. It's not a continuation of life or interpretation of a death. It's a forced return, and that creates a kind of narrative dissonance. Other puppets gain emotions through awakening, exposure to ego, but the Nameless Puppet skips all of that. It jumps straight to the end goal, being human, without going through the process. And the result is something unstable. Almost like a body without a soul, or a soul without the ability to express itself. In my opinion, it's not just a failed experiment, it's a failed reunion. Geppetto didn't just create something broken, he created something that can never truly be Carlo again. After all, I see now the Nameless Puppet and the whole Lies of P story next. The Nameless Puppet isn't just a character, it's a statement. It shows that you cannot recreate a human by force. You can build a body, you can even try to reconstruct memory, but you cannot replace the process of becoming human. That has to happen naturally. And that is why P succeeds where the Nameless Puppet fails. P starts as a puppet, but through choices, lies, empathy and experience, he becomes something more. The Nameless Puppet does the opposite. It starts as an attempt at a human, but never truly becomes one. In trying to bring Carlo back instantly, Geppetto ensures that he never could. So is the first puppet actually human? No. It's closer than anything else in the game yet, but that's exactly what makes it disturbing. Because it exists right at the edge, close enough to feel human, but never enough to be one. And from that perspective, the final Nameless Puppet fight stops being about defeating a boss and starts feeling like putting an end to something that should never have been brought back in the first place. Thanks for watching, hit that like button and subscribe for more Lies of P and other Souls-like video game guides and lore videos, and stay sharp out there.